Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I have a question for you. How many people have deployed Azure Stack TP2? Awesome. I see a couple of hands. That's great. We're going to talk about Azure Stack today, State of the Union. I want to walk you through some of the Azure Stack capabilities and show you some demos of what you can do with Azure Stack. So second question. Who's using Azure and have apps deployed in Azure that their business is using? Even better. That's good to hear. My name's Kath McBride. I'm a senior program manager. I work on a team called the ECG Enterprise and Cloud Group CAT team. What we do is we work with customers that are using these new technologies and testing them and provide feedback to the product group on the product and how it's working. So I'm working with this technology day in and day out. Hybrid cloud is a reality. I saw quite a number of hands go up. People are using Azure, and Azure's great. But there's a number of organizations that we've heard from where they cannot put applications into the cloud. They just can't put them in the public cloud. And there's a variety of reasons for that. It could be regulations. So if I'm working with government or medical customers in the healthcare industry, some of their data they cannot put into the cloud. We've also got sensitive data, so it might be PCI. We've got a number of different compliances that we have to meet, and some of them state you can't put this stuff in the public cloud. We may have some customizations that we need to do to with our application to make it work, and for whatever reason, Azure isn't going to fit the bill. Latency. Anybody ever run into those applications where you've got latency issues? So when you put components of it up in Azure, it just doesn't perform as you need it to. You need it in your data centers. You need it close to meet those latency requirements. Okay? And lastly, legacy support. Now, what we're hearing, 74% of the enterprises out there believe that hybrid cloud is going to enable growth in their business. Okay? We're also hearing that 82% of businesses have a hybrid cloud strategy. So a lot of people are looking at this and planning and moving forward, and they want to get there. So hybrid's evolving, okay? Where we're at today is we want to be able to increase our operational efficiency. We want to get better at what we're doing and operate in a far better manner. So we want to be able to back up and have DR capabilities and take advantage of the cloud. We want to lift and shift things to the cloud, and that's an important one that I'll discuss more. We want to be able to do things like dev and test environments and have those environments where we can move things through pretty rapidly. I've been in the industry more than a year or two, and I remember back in the day when we had our dev QA and then our public or our production environments, moving an application through it was extremely difficult because we had all these connections that changed and we had all this information that we had to change as we went through those environments. So how can we make that easier so that we can just pick up that application and lift and shift it wherever we need to put it? We've got mobile access. And then we've got hybrid app patterns. As we get over here on your right-hand side, sorry, I was going to say left. As we get over on the right-hand side, you're unlocking new business values. Now, as I talk to customers and I travel around, I have yet to meet one that says we are getting a lot more people to do the job so that we can reduce the number of requests that are coming from the business. It's the opposite. You're working with the same amount or less people, and those business requests are just growing. So how can we address that and get better at that? We want to be consistent and we want to be flexible. Okay, so consistency is really, really important. If I want to have those dev test environments into production, I need consistency. And I need to be able to have a consistent build of an application that I can move through it quickly and easily. Okay? We also want this to be seamless and secure. So, the Microsoft point of view when it comes to cloud. It's not a thing. It's not a place. What it is a model. It's a way of doing, providing infrastructure that can support these applications. Now, that could be private cloud. Could be hybrid cloud, where you're going to a hoster and taking advantage of services that you get from them. Or it could be the Azure public cloud. And there's other examples of public clouds as well. So we've got these different environments that we need to be able to take advantage of. How do we get there so that we can do it quickly and easily? So we've got a comprehensive cloud solution. Okay? When we look at this, we look at how can you control resources? How can you keep them secure? Make sure that they're where they're supposed to be and users can access them as expected. How do we keep our data secure? Remember, we've got those compliance requirements where things may need to be kept on-prem. How do we have developers update the applications and do the work that they need to do and simply hand it off to IT? I'm sure all of us have the stories where development team has come to us and said, here's a new application. It works great on my setup. And you take it and you try and deploy it and it breaks. And there's a variety of reasons for that. It could be drivers, it could be any number of things that are different in that environment. So how do we take that application and make it consistent so that we can move it through those 3 cloud models that I talked about? Private, hosted, public. That's the goal. Okay, let's keep going. So this is the point behind Azure Stack, okay? Azure Stack, it's been fairly unclear for a while, what it is exactly. So Azure Stack is an infrastructure that you build that's built in an automated manner, and I'll get into the availability of it shortly, but it's built automatically, and it's a subset of what's available in Azure, okay? So I want to be careful how I phrase that. Azure is made up of thousands of servers. They come in containers, huge containers with thousands of servers in them. That's a little bit high scale for moving this on-prem because it's out of the realm of possibility for a lot of organizations to start going and buying containers. So what we had to do was think about it and how we're going to move this on-prem and how we can model that infrastructure to give you similar capabilities to what's available in Azure. Now, at GA, not everything is going to be available, and we'll talk about that shortly. Azure Stack is available in TP2. That's been out since, I think, last September, if I remember, September, October, if I remember correctly. We are now working on the next release. So you guys are going to get a sneak peek at one of the developer editions that I've gotten my hands on and some of the new capabilities in it. Okay, before we drill down into what it's all about and how it's built, let's talk about why we created it. All right, this is Microsoft Azure. So on the very top, you've got the portal, or you can access it through DevTools. You can access it through PowerShell. I use Visual Studio a lot when I'm accessing Azure. Below that, you've got Azure Resource Manager. How many people have been playing with ARM, Azure Resource Manager? Great. For anyone that did not raise their hand, I encourage you, if you're interested in Azure Stack, to start looking at ARM. Start figuring out what it is, how it works, and that will allow you to jumpstart on Azure Stack. Okay? Below that, we've got Azure IaaS and Azure PaaS. So within Azure, there's a lot of capabilities available for PaaS services. A subset of these will be available with Azure Stack. Okay? We can't just lift and shift everything down. So what we've done is we've taken the most required or most asked for components, and we're pulling those down into the Azure Stack GA release. At the bottom, you've got that cloud infrastructure. Now that's where I mentioned with Azure, it's containers. Anybody been to a Microsoft data center? If you get the chance, go. It's amazing. Because you walk in there and there's these huge containers full of servers. And we don't just go in and change a server when something breaks. We wait until enough breaks and then we change containers. Okay? We do it on large scale. So that's what we've got in that environment. So now let's take a look at Azure Stack. This is your private or your hosted solution. Okay, do we have service providers? Don't see any hands. It's hard to see. Oh, I see one. Thank you. One or two. It's hard to see in this light. Okay, this is what our hosters or our enterprises will use to provide Azure-like services within their organization. So let's go back down through. What have we got at the top? We've got the portal. We've got development tools. We've got PowerShell for accessing this environment and being able to do what we need to do. Below that, we've got Azure Resource Manager. Remember I mentioned consistency? Consistency is also important between these environments, because if we don't have that level of consistency, it's hard to lift and shift a VM from Azure Stack to Azure and have that level of consistency. Okay, below that, we've got Azure IaaS and Azure PaaS. We've got App Service. Okay, I know I've talked to a few people already today that are using App Service. We've got a SQL resource provider and a MySQL resource provider. We've got Service Fabric. And then we've got Compute, Networking, and Storage, which provide our IaaS services. Very similar to what's on the other side, but you notice here I've called out a subset because, as I mentioned, not everything is going to come down day one. At the bottom, this is where you notice the difference. Cloud infrastructure, cloud-inspired infrastructure. Okay? I think my environment right at the moment is running about 14 virtual machines to support this. Okay? So I've got all sorts of virtual machines in my cloud-inspired infrastructure. So let's keep going. What have we got? One Azure ecosystem. We've got unified app development experience. Do I have developers in the audience? Okay, JSON templates. They're pretty amazing, and we're going to take a look at a couple of JSON templates today and talk about why that gives us the consistency. And then we've got the Azure services in our data center. Okay. As we talk about these Azure services in our data center, PaaS is important, IaaS is important, okay? We've got down at the bottom our service operator and our flexible delivery capability, and at the top we've got our developers. Okay, I mentioned one of the challenges in developing applications is being able to do that handoff to IT to be able to deliver that production application. Okay, and that's been a challenge for a long, long time. What we're looking at here is how we can do this more easily, where a developer will be able to create their application in such a way that it does not matter which cloud it goes on. So I can put it on-prem on Azure Stack. I can put it in a hosted environment that is running with Azure Stack. Or I can put it in Azure. Now, there's some subtle differences between the two environments, and we'll talk about that as we get into the demos. What's really important here is that the developer can go in using self-service. So we can set up an environment so that the developer who's creating this application can go and get those resources he needs. And it may be, I don't know, back-end SQL server, front-end web app server using app service. Okay, it can be any combination of things, but he can go and get those, and he can create on his own the environment to develop in. Right? He defines that environment using the JSON templates. So now, when it moves to the service operator or whoever's managing Azure Stack and they need to move it into Azure Stack, we're going to take that JSON template and we're going to deploy it. Okay? So that simplifies the whole thing. This is all about next-gen computing. So what we've got here is a slide that shows our Azure data centers around the world. And there's quite a number of them. Okay? Let me click it one more time. This is when we start looking at our hosters that are out there. And then I'm going to click it again. And this is when we start putting Azure Stack on top of it. So now we've got our private cloud world, we've got our hosted world, we've got our public world. Using the same consistent environments, which gives you as business owners or people working in IT for a business a lot of flexibility and choices. Okay, so you've got the options to do lots of different things. Now, in Azure, we got a lot of capabilities. Okay? We've got mobile e-commerce. We can put SharePoint in Azure. We've got business applications available. There's lots of capabilities. And I'm going to show you what that looks like shortly going into the Azure portal. As we move to Azure Stack, we're shrinking down that list. Okay? As I mentioned, we can't just pick up and lift and shift everything down. So what we've brought down is some things around mobile that are going to be available at GA. We've got SharePoint on Azure Stack. I can deploy that now. So can you guys. And I'll show you how to do it using a template and where to get that template. We've got the ability to have development and testing and moving these things into production. So this is about bringing on-prem these capabilities within Azure so that you can run them locally and meet all those requirements of latency, compliance, and all those different things. So, from a management and security, identity and access perspective, in this demo that I'm going to show you today, I'm still using Azure Active Directory. Okay, ADFS is still coming. It's going to be available soon, but it's not available in this dev build. We've got Key Vault capabilities. Anybody using Key Vault? Key Vault allows you to take all those secrets and put them into a vault so that as this application moves through these environments, so too does that password. So we configure it so that the secrets are kept in that vault instead of handing that password around. Okay, 101 security. As soon as you give the password away to something, you know, somebody's got full access to it. So how can we control that? So Key Vault's coming. We've got the Azure portal, and you'll see that it's very, very consistent. From an Azure PaaS, we've got web apps. We've got mobile apps. API apps are coming. And then we've got Service Fabric. And I also mentioned two other, I'm going to throw in another word at the moment, resource providers for MySQL and SQL that are available. And we'll talk about what those are. And then from Azure IaaS, we've got virtual machines. And that includes container extensions. Okay? We've got storage, blobs, tables, queues. Those capabilities are available in the current release that's available to you. And then from a networking perspective, software-defined networking, being able to create virtual networks, add virtual appliances like firewalls or VPN gateways, and pulling all these together so that we can manage those through Azure Stack. These are the capabilities that will be available to you. Some of them, quite a few of them, are already available in the demo I'm going to show you. So I keep talking about consistency and how important consistency is. So let's take a look at that. And let me just pop out here and get over to my lab, which I hope is still up. Okay. This is the Azure Stack portal. Okay, given away top left by Azure Stack. In here, I've got a dashboard, and I can customize that dashboard. I can see a number of different things. Down here, I've got all my services listed. So let's go take a look at Azure quickly. Where did I put Azure? Here's Azure. So the dashboard looks almost the same. Okay, some things have been moved around because I've customized and I've changed my dashboard slightly. On the left, I still have that pick list. Now, the pick list in Azure is a little bit larger. As I mentioned, not everything is coming down immediately. So there's lots of services in Azure that are available to you. But we've got that consistency within this portal. Let me just take a look. I think I've got a virtual machine deployed in this environment. I haven't deployed a virtual machine yet. OK. I haven't put any of those in. So let's just come out of there. And let's go back over to the Azure Stack portal. So as I mentioned, I can customize my dashboard. I can change it to what I need. I've got lots of information that I can look at here for different capabilities. So the first place I'm going to go is region management. Now, we have this concept of a region. And within that region, you can have multiple scale units. And that can have a number of servers. And we'll talk about some of the scale shortly. Now, I am running this demo in Redmond. So it may take a second for some of this to come up. And I was going to region management. Come on. OK. I have one region. At this point in time, it's called local. OK? Keep in mind, this is a dev preview. This is later than TP2, so we're going to see some new capabilities and things that are available to us. Not everything is done yet. OK? So there's going to be a couple of things around here, like storage has that big bang there. That's just a known issue right at the moment. So this is my region. Now, I mentioned IaaS capabilities. If we look here under resource providers, we can see a number of resource providers. And a resource provider is that capability for things like storage, networking, compute. We've got Key Vault in there. And we use the resource providers to give us access to those capabilities within the system. So let's just take a quick look at storage. Now, as you can see while this is coming up, we've got some alerting turned on. More to come. Okay, this is just our start point on this. It's going to think for a second. Come on. OK. This is my view of the storage in this environment. As I mentioned, we've got blobs, we've got tables, we've got queues. And you can see information about those here. You can see that I've got 83 storage accounts built. So I'm tracking exactly what my usage is. And this is what my tenants are using. Okay? I can see how much of my storage capacity has been used. So I've got a quick view into that. A lot of this is very similar to what you see in Azure. I've got my system health checks. Yes, I like to break things. So every once in a while, I get these fails because I break something. I can configure a number of different things in here. So when we're deploying, we need to think about things like quotas. How much of this am I going to allow my users to have access to? So here, I've created quotas to say, when you subscribe to these services, this is the amount you can use. And you get to define those. So this is some of the work that takes place on the back end of Azure that you guys don't usually see in Azure. So this is what you're going to configure through here. I mentioned that we've got blob services. So if I click on there, I get a view into how things are running. Okay? Now I can back out, and I can go to compute. Come on. The joys of running remotely. OK, so again, when I want to look at the information within this region for my compute, I can see my system health checks. I can see the number of VM images that I've got deployed in this. This is not virtual machines. This is the images that I have made available within what we call the marketplace. So here you can see that I've got Windows. I've got Windows Server 2016 and 2012 R2. And I've got Linux. Okay? So we can deploy all of these into an environment and take advantage of them within our business. Again, I've got the ability to configure quotas. How much of these resources can my users use? Now, I want to show you something kind of neat. I'm going to go to the marketplace. Now, for those of you that have deployed TP2, you're going to notice something a little bit different here. Because in my marketplace, I've done some customization. So I've got the ability, I'm the service administrator here, so I'm the one that's actually configuring this environment, so I've got access to everything. So I can create offers and plans. Okay? This is what I'm going to make available for my users to subscribe to. I can create and configure those. Okay? This is where I'm going to go to configure my quotas. I can deploy virtual machines. Okay, so I've got 4 different ones up there, including LAMP. For anybody that's on TP2, you're used to seeing availability set and Windows Server 2012 R2. Okay? As I go down through, I can configure data and storage. I can pick from the list of networking capabilities. That's quite an extensive list of networking capabilities that I can put into this environment and manage it. So here's what I want to show you. How do I get these images in here? I mentioned that it comes with 2012 R2 and availability set. And that was all that was available under virtual machine. So how did I get those in there? There's some great documentation out there that will tell you how to pull custom images into Azure Stack. I'm going to show you something that is in Azure Preview. Now, notice I mentioned Azure Preview, not Azure Stack. We are taking advantage of a capability that Azure is making available. And it's called Marketplace Syndication. Just give it a sec, and it will come up. So what is Marketplace Syndication? This is the ability to connect my Azure Stack environment to Azure and get a select set of images that will work with Azure Stack and pull them down into my environment. So what you're seeing here is those 2 additional ones that I pulled down. I've got my RDS farm, and I've got my LAMP stack. And I have actually pulled those from Azure into this environment. So how do I do that? What I do, after I've set up the synchronization, is I simply click Add. There's what's available to me. Okay? It's a subset, it's not everything, but this is what's available to me, and I can pull these down into my environment and make them available into my marketplace. Okay? So I'm not sure if you guys are using some of these, 2016, 2012 R2, whatever, but they're there. And I can do it quickly and easily. So when I click on one of these, it's going to say, do you want to download it? If I download that, it will pull that image down. It will pull the JSON template down. It will put it into the marketplace for me and make it available. That's pretty easy. So I want to show you something else from a consistency perspective. Who's been up to GitHub recently? Do you guys use GitHub a lot? Great tool. These are the Azure Stack Quick Start templates. Now, I can go to GitHub, and I can get one of these JSON templates and all the instructions, and I can pull it down and copy it into my environment and build a custom template, and off I go. Or I can do it the way I like to. So I'm going to click on New, Custom Template. I'm going to select Template Deployment. Okay, this should look very familiar to those of you that are using Azure. It's the same sort of process. Now, when I look at this, there's nothing there. I can drop in a custom template if I choose to. I want to do it the easy way, because I know up in those quick start templates, there's a template that I need. Okay? So what I can do is I can go, we'll just grab this one, the simple VM template. This is a simple Windows VM, and I'm going to pull that down. Now all of the information appears there. So I've actually reached out to GitHub and pulled one of those Azure Stack templates into my environment, as simply as that. And then I can go ahead and configure it. We can see our parameters that are available to us here. We can see our variables that are available to us. And I can configure this as I need to. I can copy this off, save it as another custom template. I can do what I need to with it. But this is the power of JSON. Because I can take that template, and I'll show you shortly, and deploy that same template into Azure with a couple of minor tweaks. Okay? Is that pretty cool? Azure Marketplace pretty cool? Awesome. All right, let's go back over to the deck. Let's get the deck up there. I love Machu Picchu, but I don't think you guys want to see that. All right, let's look at the architecture right at the moment. So in the TP2 proof of concept capabilities, it's one server. Okay? It's got some somewhat beefy requirements. Keep in mind, I'm pulling a private cloud infrastructure onto a single server. So yes, it's going to have some beefy requirements. I'll show you where to find the documentation so that you can see that and see what's required. That machine that I was just showing you is running on, I'm trying to remember which one it is. It's got 6 hard drives in it, fairly good size. I think they're around 175 gigs each, and I think that one's got 96 gigs of RAM in it. Okay, so we've got some decent requirements there, but we've got to remember what we're running. So on the bottom, we've got the cloud infrastructure. Above that is we've got the extensible service framework. All right, this is where we've got our foundational services, those things that are required for Azure Stack. Okay? Above that, we've got our additional services. So this is where we start pulling in things like resource providers and different capabilities. We've got core service capabilities. And then above that, we start looking at our things like our portal and our capabilities at the top. Now, I want to go to the next slide because I like this one better, because this starts talking about the architecture and what it looks like. Bottom level, network, compute, and storage. Okay, that's our bottom level of what we've got in our hardware layer. As we move up, we've got, hang on a second, I just want to make sure I'm talking to the right spot. Over on the, this center bar here, we've got our controller layer. So this is how we control the environment. We've got the ability to manage nodes. We've got the ability, we've got our storage, compute, and network controllers that allow us to talk into this hardware layer and abstract it. We've got our health layer so that we know how this thing is behaving. Going up, you can see that we've got a bunch of short little names there. FRP, that's our fabric resource provider. SRP, that's our storage resource provider. Then we've got our compute resource provider, our network resource provider, our health resource provider, and lastly, we've got our update resource provider. That's interesting, an update resource provider. It's an important capability. How are we going to update this environment in a consistent manner so that it can be updated and managed without things crashing or causing problems? Okay? Above that, we've got ARM, Azure Resource Manager, and that is a very, very important layer. Okay? And as I mentioned earlier, going out and learning ARM is really important as we go down this path. Above that, we've got the portal. We've already seen the consistency in the portal. And then we've got PowerShell, we've got an SDK, we've got different tools that we can access this environment. Okay? And one of my favorites is Visual Studio. And I love taking a template and deploying it from Visual Studio directly into Azure Stack or into Azure. Okay? These are our infrastructure roles. So as you can see, there's a lot of them. We've got a domain controller that resides in here. Have to have a domain controller. We have ADFS, and we've got certificate management for our certificates. We've got things like our, I mentioned our health controller. We've got our storage controller. We've got a MUX. We've got gateways inside of this thing. So there's a number of different virtual machines to support this environment. This gives you an idea of what this architecture looks like. Okay? What we've been looking at so far is the very top layer at the portal. And everything else resides underneath and runs underneath of it. All right. I mentioned scale. So this is how we're thinking about scale. Now, right at the moment, we've got a single node available, or a single server POC available. It is only a POC. But what we start looking at is our endpoint for administration or for our tenants that are going to use this is that portal and that portal URL and being able to access the environment. Then you can have several regions. Okay, now this is a capability that we're building towards and that we're thinking about as we design this. Below that, you can have multiple scale units. So in this diagram, it shows Mexico, Monterey, and Dallas. Okay, so we've got these different locations, and within there, we've got different scale units. As you can see, there's a single one showing for Dallas. Monterey has 3. So we've got that scalability within this environment. Our smallest scale is going to be 4 servers. Okay? All right. We talked about the syndication of the Azure Marketplace items. Now, the way that works is you install the syndication component, and it allows you to reach into Azure and see those images that are available that you can pull down. Okay? Once you pull them down, you manage them. It's not constantly checking, but it makes them available to you and makes it a lot easier. Some of the TP2 enhancements, Key Vault. Okay? If you're looking at security and you're interested in security, Key Vault capabilities are pretty amazing. We've got queue storage for asynchronous messaging. We've got VPN gateways for cross-site connectivity. What else did we add? ARM template compatibility improvements, and I'll talk about that shortly. I'm going to show you a demo of that. And then we've got the beginnings of our infrastructure management capabilities. So we looked at that region and how we could drill down through that and see all the information that's available to us. We're continuing to build on consistency. So let's take a look at the management capabilities. Let me just get back over to my demo. Sorry, somebody's calling me. We will ignore that. All right. So I'm going to go back up here. And this is my Azure Stack environment. Come on, play nice. All right. As I went into the region, you were able to see some of the alert mechanisms that have been put into place and our monitoring capabilities that are going to be available to us. Now, it's still early, okay? So not everything's there, but as you can see, I've got alerting capabilities. Storage says it has a problem. Today it's lying, but that's okay. We'll let it. I can go in here and take a look at my alerts. So as you can see, a week ago, something happened in this environment, and it alerted and provided me with information. If I go down through here and take a look, I can get into my auditing capabilities. So what's happening in this environment? If I've got business-critical applications running in this environment, you can bet that I want to know what's going on with it. And this will start giving me information about those capabilities. Now, it's going to take a second to come up because it's parsing through the system. And as I mentioned, this one's only got 96 gigs of RAM, so it's running a little lean. But there you can see the sort of view that you get so that you can see what's happening in this environment. Okay? We will have the capability of exporting out. We will have filtering capabilities. And then I can drill down lower here, and I can go and take a look at exactly what occurred. And it's going to give me the information on exactly what happened so that I can track what's happening to this environment. All right. Now, from a virtual machine perspective, and I'm not sure how many I've got deployed in this environment, let's go take a look at those. Come on. Okay, I've got a couple of them deployed here. So what I want to take a look at is this one called SQL RP. And we'll talk about RPs in a second and those capabilities. This is actually part of my SQL resource provider. Okay? So as you can see, I'm starting to get information about this specific machine. So I've got general information up here about what the subscription name is, where it resides. I can see my CPU percentage. I can see the name of the computer. If I want to, I can click on connect. I can connect to it. I can restart it. I can stop it. I can manage it through here. Now, that's the portal way of doing it. I can also do it through PowerShell. Or I can do it through CLI. So I've got these different tools and capabilities to be able to access this environment in the way I need to. Most developers are not going to come to the portal to start and stop their virtual machines. They're probably going to PowerShell it. If I look down through here, and I want to see what's going on with that virtual machine, I've got my activity log. So this is specific to that virtual machine and what's happened to it over time. Right at the moment, it's behaving really well because I have no events. I've got the ability to set access control. More coming here, okay? But I've got the ability to control access to this through Roles-Based Access Controller, RBAC. It's thinking about it right now. What you're seeing here is some of the default groups that are available within Azure Stack, and then some additional ones that have been created specific to this deployment. If I wanted to, I can add disks. I simply click Add and add a disk. This is my buddy's environment. I'm not going to do that to him. I can add extensions. So here you'll see the extensions that were added when this was deployed. So when this deployed as part of the SQL resource provider, not only did it lay down a virtual machine, not only did it install SQL, but it also installed some other extensions with it. If I wanted to, I could add some more extensions. These are built in. I can add anti-malware. Remember, I talked about GitHub. If I wanted to, I could go to GitHub and see if there's something available there that I need as an extension as well. So I've got lots of flexibility in managing this. I can manage my network interfaces. I can set my size, and I can adjust that. Again, I'm not going to do this to my buddy's environment that I'm borrowing. So I can change this. Right at the moment, I'm on an A2 standard. I simply click on it, say accept, and it will upgrade. Okay? One of the things that I find really cool is I can change the password from the portal. That was not in an earlier release of this. This is new. And I can go in and reset the password, and it will go and communicate with that virtual machine and reset the password for me. Okay? All right, coming out of there. Some of the other information that you can get out of here. I'm not going to go into infrastructure capacity. That is coming. It is not there quite yet. But let's go and look at resource providers. Did I click on the right thing? There we go. So I've added resource providers to this. Remember, in this environment, it comes with compute, network, and storage by default. When Azure Stack is installed, those are available to you. Here's what I've added to it. I have added the SQL resource provider, and I've also added that Azure Marketplace connection. I don't think he's added anything else to it. You can also add MySQL. You can add App Service to this environment as a resource provider. Those are available to you. You go to the documentation, walk down through. The exes to install it and the capabilities to install it are there for you, and you can install those and play with that in this environment, in your environment. If I want to drill deeper into exactly how this has been configured, I can go into Resource Explorer. And Resource Explorer is going to start giving me a really detailed view of what's installed in this environment and how things are configured. So if I click down through here and I go and take a look at one of my resource groups, which is a container for all my different components that I pull together, let me just take a look at that SQL one that we were looking at. So here's that SQL RP machine. And it's actually a hosting server. I can look at information about the deployment. So now I've got all this information about what took place when it was deployed. There's the configuration of my SQL hosting server. So all these capabilities are starting to become available to you in this portal. Okay, there's lots of new stuff in here. Let's go back over to the deck. There's Machu Picchu again. All right. So when I asked earlier who had deployed TP2 in their environment, I think I saw 2 or 3 hands go up. Is that because you don't have that big heavy-duty server so that you can go and get this and slap it on it? Is that where you're running into a challenge? Yeah, okay. We hear that a lot. And so what I want to talk to you about is 2 tools that can help you. Because there's lots of things you can do right now without that hardware. You can use Azure. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to deploy Azure Stack in Azure. But keep in mind that we have consistency across these environments. That one thing I said you need to start figuring out is ARM and JSON templates and how you're going to use those to deploy applications in your environment. So you can take advantage of Azure and understand all the different capabilities that it's got, but we can also take advantage of things like a template validator. That's a checker for our templates, and I'll show you how that works. We can set policies in Azure that map it to Azure Stack so that when we deploy our templates, we're testing against what's in Azure Stack. Okay? So let me just show you that. Okay, so let's just bounce out of here, not hit delete. All right, I am going to open up some files, and this is on my laptop, okay? This is not in that Azure Stack environment. So I don't have an environment. I need to do some stuff. That's probably not the one I wanted. Hang on a second. I've got a number of these windows open. Oh, that's Key Vault. Okay, policy definition. So remember I said we can set policies against a resource group in Azure that will allow us to mimic Azure Stack so that as we're deploying our templates, we can do some testing. So in this environment, I've already logged into Azure. Hang on a second. There you can see I'm tied to my Azure cloud. So this is my subscription up in Azure. What I want to do is I want to set some information. So I am going to run this. Whoops. Azure Context is not recognized. I am going to import the policy. Hang on a second. Let me just click out of that. I'm going to import a module into here. Okay? This is available to you, and I'll show you where you can get it. And then I would log into my Azure account, and I'm going to set my subscription information. And then I'm going to look in Azure and see what's available for subscriptions. What you'll notice here is I don't have one that is associated with my templates. I usually call them Azure Stack or ARM or something of that nature. So I've got a number of different things configured, but I don't have one that I've configured specific for this. Actually, I do. There it is there. So I'm not going to run that part, but I'll walk you through how this works. What I would next do is I would run this command to create my resource group where I want it and set the policies against that resource group. Remember, I'm working up in the public cloud. Okay? I would create that. Then what I can do is I can test a template. So what it's going to do is it's going to create a deployment. It's going to test the template and make sure it's correct. And if there's something that doesn't match what I require in Azure Stack, it's going to alert me. So I have a lot of red on my screen, which means I've got a problem. What it's telling me here is, hang on a second, the resource provider is incorrect. So the version of it is not set correctly, if I remember right. So what I can do is I can then go into Visual Studio, and I can take a look at that template and see what's broken in it. Now, I know, based on the policies that I've set, that there's certain schema versions that will work in Azure Stack that don't work in, or that there's certain schema versions in Azure that don't work in Azure Stack at the current time. We're starting to merge, but there's some specifics. I also know that I can't do geo-redundant storage in Azure Stack. Okay, it's one server, so I can only do LRS. So if I go down and look at my variables, I can see here where I have a problem with that template. So if you're starting to work on these applications and developing JSON templates, and you want to test them, this is a great tool for you. It lets you do it in Azure so that you don't have to have Azure Stack environment right away. Now, the next thing I've got, let me just show you what we're checking for. So it uses a couple of files to do this. It's checking for the SKUs that are available to me, and it's also checking for the storage. Okay? This is what we've created in this policy tool at this point in time. Let me go back here. Which one do I want here? All right. This is my template validation, and this is going to check my template. Now, what am I checking for in this one? I'm checking for a number of capabilities that have been defined in this JSON file to make sure that that template is working as expected before I deploy it. Okay? It's just easing the troubleshooting capabilities. So I've already set my directory, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to import a module. Okay, that's now imported, and then I'm going to check my template. So just another way of checking these templates and making sure that things are correct for your deployments. Remember I mentioned schema versions. Here, it's told me that my schema version that is in this template is not correct. And it even goes so far as to tell me that that's specific to the networking. So then I can go and quickly adjust my template, retest it, and when it's ready, I know that I'm going to have more success in deployment. Okay, I'm going to come back into the PowerPoint. Azure Stack is integrated systems. Okay, we'll talk about who's going to be delivering those in a minute at GA. But it's integrated systems. Anybody deploy CPS? CPS is a similar version of this, much bigger. It's a full rack. This is all about continuous innovation so that you guys can get the updates and the new capabilities as quickly as possible without disrupting tenants, either availability or their experience. Okay? It's an accelerated time to value. This one is very near and dear to me. Who in here has tried to build a private cloud? I'm not sure. Well, I see two. If I may, did it take you longer than a day? Yeah. So I'm seeing these nods. To build a private cloud can take a significant amount of time. There's a lot of things you've got to put together. And you've got to worry about the storage, you've got to order everything, you've got to worry about the networking, make sure it all works together. You've got a lot of work to put this thing together, and then you add monitoring on top of it. By buying an integrated system of this nature, you get that increased time to value. And what that means is you're going to order this Azure Stack rack, and you're going to pull it into your environment, and you're going to plug it in, and you're going to have your private cloud. Okay? Now, there's a bit of a process to it, similar to CPS. You're going to fill out a questionnaire with the information that's important or that is critical to your environment, things like naming, IPs, things of that nature. And then you're going to work with an OEM, and they're going to deploy Azure Stack onto this set of hardware, and it's going to move into your data center. It's quick. So I mentioned CPS. I worked with a customer on CPS. And when I left after a week, and they had their private cloud running, they said that was the fastest deployment we've ever done. Okay? This gets you out of the business of building infrastructure. Remember at the very beginning, I mentioned that list of business requests. And the business is always asking for things. You're able to then address those needs with the business, get the applications upgraded, do all these different things, instead of building infrastructure. And as this gentleman over here was nice enough to say, it took a long time. Okay? Dell, HP, Lenovo. Those are our 3 vendors that are going to be available at GA. Okay? There is still a POC available. It is a POC single server system. And I'm pretty sure it's still going to be available at GA. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. But this is where your production grade hardware is going to come from for this. As I mentioned, you're going to fill in a quick survey. They're going to build it for you. They're going to lay down Azure Stack on it. It rolls into your environment, and you jump into it and start working the way I did. Now, nobody raised their hand for CPS in here. I do have customers that have deployed CPS. CPS is 2012 R2. Who's deployed Windows Azure Pack? And using virtual machines with Windows Azure Pack. We want to protect your investment. So how do we do that? Keep in mind there's a real paradigm shift between Azure Stack and Windows Azure Pack or CPS. So how are we going to do that? We've still got the capabilities over here to deploy virtual machines. We've got all that. But what we want to do is make sure it can coexist. All right? So you're going to be able to manage CPS and WAP VMs from Azure Stack. Now, I don't have that capability built in yet, but I've got a little video to show you on it. So this uses a connector, and it gives us the ability to manage those virtual machines from Azure Stack so you don't have to worry about these separate environments. Is it going to let you do everything? No, but you can see them, you can start them, stop them, you can do all the common tasks that you need to be able to do with those virtual machines and those virtual machine roles. You'll be able to browse through things like the virtual networks and the subnets. So let me just see if I can get this video to go. All right, this is what it's going to look like. Now, this is my Azure Stack environment. You're going to notice one thing a little bit different in the top left-hand corner. Left-hand for you guys. It says Azure Stack, and it's got a picker there. Okay? So this is a little bit different from the portal that I showed you. Just make sure this thing's moving along. All right. So these are virtual machines that live in Windows Azure Pack. These 3 that you're looking at here, they are not in Azure Stack. They're in Windows Azure Pack. And here's how I can tell. I can click on that drop-down and select the environment that I want to look at, whether it's Azure Stack or Azure Pack. And this connector enables that capability for me. I just got to wait for this to catch up. Come on. There we go. So this is my WAP environment. Now, you notice everything on the left-hand side disappeared. I haven't pulled any of my favorites in yet. Again, it's a subset, but I can add my favorites in so that they're visible to me, and then I can work with them through the portal. Okay, so I can see things like my virtual networks and my virtual machines. If I click on this, and notice it signifies it as WAP, just so that you know exactly which environment you're going to be in. There's my virtual machines that are running there. Okay, I've got some basic information about them, the subscriptions that they're tied to, the type, what their creation date was, and if I click on them, you'll notice that this is a very similar view to what you get with Azure Stack. Slightly less list of what you can do with it, but here you can see the monitoring capabilities. I can see the OS disks that are in it. I can see the networks. I can look at my IP addresses. So I've got some basic management. This is protecting your investment in Windows Azure Pack. Because they're 2012 R2 and the way they're created, they don't use ARM. So you can't just lift and shift them up to Azure Stack. So we need to think about how we're going to do that. But this allows us to keep managing these environments as we go forward. So what you just saw there, starting the VM from the Azure Stack portal. Okay? All right. Timelines. Everybody wants to know about timelines. So TP2, September 2016. What you're looking at in my environment that I showed you today is a pre-TP3 release. This is a development release that they told me I could bring to you and show you some of these new capabilities. TP3 is coming soon. All right? Now, one of the things I didn't show you, GA will be the public release, and it's a single node plus those multi-node systems from those 3 vendors that I showed you in the previous slide. Okay? One of the things I didn't show you, I just saw people taking pictures. Okay, we're good to go. All right, a couple of other things that I wanted to show you that are available to you as you prepare for Azure Stack in your organization. Azure Stack documentation. We've been working really hard on this. Okay? So as you can see, there's a list down the side there. With the POC environment, you're going to deploy it yourself. So there's information there about how to deploy it. There's getting started information. If your tool of choice is Visual Studio, how you install it in this environment. Maybe you're going to use the portal. How you connect with PowerShell. Keep in mind, this is a private cloud, so you need to develop things like offers and plans. What is it that I'm going to offer my tenants? What does it look like? And we talked quickly about quotas and how we set those. Now, one of the things I want you to think about as you're going down through this and you're starting to design what it's going to look like for your organization, think about the application that you're deploying. Okay? Application first. If you're a hoster, you're going to be thinking about the services that you want to offer to your customers based on the applications they will be deploying. But always keep the application tucked in your mind. Because if I'm deploying web apps, I know that I now need to deploy the SQL RP, potentially, depending on what they're using, the MySQL RP, and the App Service RP. So as we think about these applications, it's going to help us define what this environment's going to look like. We've got things about using templates. Okay? How we develop them, how we do all these different things. I highly encourage you to start looking at JSON templates in ARM and learning more and more about it. I showed you this very quickly. These are the Azure Stack Quick Start templates. If you're deploying this in your environment, you can start playing around with these and deploy them. If I go down the list, SharePoint's there. There's a domain controller there. We've got a number of different ones that are available to you, and these have been tested by the product group and a variety of teams, including my own, to make sure they're working correctly. Yes, you can go to Azure GitHub and get templates from there. However, keep in mind your template checker. Keep in mind that policy tool to double check and make sure that they're going to work in Azure Stack. Not everything's coming across. One of the things that's happening is the schemas that are available in Azure are just moving along really quickly. Well, while we're developing, we're falling just a hair behind. We have to make sure that everything is good in Azure, and then we move it into Azure Stack. So there's always going to be that little bit of a step difference. So you need to check things like that. I showed you that template that had GRS enabled for our storage. It's not available in this current version of Azure Stack. So check those things if you're going to go to Azure, GitHub templates. If you've deployed this, hang on a second, I'll click on the right thing. Azure Stack Tools. Again, we've been working really hard on tools to help you. So the buddy that loaned me the lab, he's created a tool and a set of utilities that you can import from GitHub into your Azure Stack environment. What does it do for you? If I'm accessing Azure Stack through PowerShell, there's this really neat little PowerShell command that I've got to create. It's about 6-8 lines long. Or I can import the tools he's created and the utilities into my environment, and it's actually documented in here exactly how you do it. I can import those tools, and I think, no, it's not in this one. It's in one of the other groupings. But then I just type in connect-Azure Stack. And it pops me up a window, I log into it, and I'm in my environment with PowerShell. So some really powerful tools that we built in here to help you, okay? The policy tool is actually in here as well. Again, I'm not sure which one it's living under, but we've got lots of stuff there that's available and more coming. I'm currently working on a blog series with a number of people that is going to come out in the near future. And it is going to talk about all those things like subscriptions, offers, plans, why you use them. We've got great information right now on how you use them. Create an offer. It was on that list. You know, create a subscription. We've got all these capabilities already talked about. But why would you make certain decisions? So there's going to be a blog series coming out. It's going to be on the Building Clouds blog. I don't know if you guys know that one. That's a blog that is managed by my team. And there will be an announcement around this as we get closer to TP3. It's designed to give you the information that you need to build a lab and start thinking about the design decisions that you need for your organization. So we've got lots and lots of great capabilities for you. So just as we close out here, because I'm getting close to running out of time, our call to action, use Azure services now, okay? We hear it a lot that, hey, I don't have the hardware to run this thing, it's huge. You can still start your learning process using Azure, using free subscriptions, the freely available ones. Trial the single node. If you can get your hands on the hardware, start trialing the single node. By the way, give us feedback, please. We want to know what's working for you, how it's working, what's great, what's, needs some change or adjustment. CPS, Cloud Platform Solution, can be deployed now. It is available to you. Deploy Windows Server 2016 and System Center and Hyper-V. This is the same virtualization technology that lives in Azure Stack. Azure Stack is built on 2016. Okay? We're not using some of the things like Ops Manager or those capabilities, but it is Hyper-V. So you can learn that. Leverage the free resources, and I'm going to show you a slide in half a second. Who went to Ignite? Okay, did you guys know that all the sessions from Ignite are available online, on demand to you for nothing? Start reviewing those sessions. You can use that to start jump-starting your learning. So those are available to you as well. So just look for Microsoft Ignite and on demand, and you'll have access to all sorts of sessions from Ignite. There's some free IT resources available to you. Okay, the IT Pro Career Center, the IT Pro Cloud Essentials. You can take advantage of these. And then we've got some additional resources and these links. Everybody keeps asking about the decks. The decks are going to be made, or I think the videos and the decks will probably as well be made available to you through that portal that you came in through. So you're going to have this information. But we've also got things like the MSDN forums. Lots and lots of information out there to help you get started. There's our hashtag. Lots of conversations going on. With that, thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.